Poppo, many of you know. Those of you who don't know him, he has been in Auroville since the very beginning. He is the only one that I know of that was actually at the inauguration. And at the inauguration, he put the soil from Germany into the urn, which you see there in the center. And we would like him to share with us the feeling about how Auroville started and what was the feeling there. We had, the estimates range from 3,000 to 5,000 people there. So I think 5,000 is a little exaggerated, but there were people from all over the world because UNESCO gave a grant to bring 2 young people from every country to start Auroville. And they all came, but the problem was after the ceremony, they all went home. So we had 2 or 3 stayed, and there were a few people living in Promes, and the story goes on from there till today. But Poppo has seen it all. We have no idea where it will go, and we have 54 years to cover because we're going from the urn to the Megalithic Park. The Megalithic Park he just built. It is right there, and it's a few thousand years old. It's right there on the way to Matramandir and Solar Kitchen. So we have only a few slides. We have slides of a couple of his architecture projects, but many of you know that he was instrumental in building fraternity, the whole community. He built all the infrastructure for that. He did many projects, including Quiet, and so many others. Afsane's Guest House was a very prominent project he did, and many others. We can't go through all of them, but if you have specific questions about any of them. So we have a couple slides of Quiet. We have a slide of the Megalithic Park, and I think we have a slide of Afsane's Guest House. So there you are. You're standing up there. You must have had some feelings. That's 54 years ago. And you're pouring the soil in, and Petra is there with you. Auroville is starting as this huge project. There's a few thousand people there. What did you feel? What did you think was going to happen? And now you can look back and actually know what happened.
You asked me what I feel there, yeah. It's all entanglement in... I didn't just come there because I heard about it. It was... But only in retrospect, later on. I was teaching in School of Architecture in Hyderabad. There were about 30 Germans, and the Consul General, a friend of the ashram, came visiting Hyderabad, and he called all Germans for a party. And then he said, "You are an architect." I said, "Yes." "Yeah, they're building a big town near Pondicherry. And then... would you like to come there or what?" I can't remember the words. I said, "Maybe, yeah, okay." And I forgot about it. Because many promises had been done, but half the way were really unrealized. So, and just by instance, as a Christmas gift for my organization, they gave me a book, a biography of Aurobindo in German. I put it in the cupboard. I hardly read in those days. But when the inauguration came, I know there's somewhere in Pondicherry, there's something Aurobindo, mother was an old lady. And I said, and then the embassy in Delhi sent a telegram in relation to the organization to represent Germany on Auroville's foundation. I said, okay. So the wish became true. I didn't believe in it, but it became true. Then I was living 1 week on diplomatic allowance.
Okay.
Before we had normal volunteer allowance. Now it was 4 times much. And then flying with a propeller machine from Hyderabad to Chennai. The money I had to borrow from Goethe Institute, Max Müller-Bhavan, because we had very little money available. I was about 24, 25. And so I took it, I took it as a holiday. And who picked me up? I have to remember. And then I took a bus to Pondicherry. I met one person there. We talked for 4 hours in the bus. It was a nephew of Nirod Baran. All I didn't know about Nirod Baran, nothing, and all was about this. And
Nirod Baran, if some of you don't know, is a famous sadhak from the Aurobindo ashram.
He was the last scribe, and Aurobindo couldn't see anymore that he had a scribe to write it for him.
Right, Savitri.
Yeah. I didn't know all that, and I didn't appreciate in those times. But we slowly became friends.
Yeah, keep the mic up.
Huh?
Yeah. Close to your mouth.
I can't hear. Okay. And when we reached Pondi, I was picked up by a Mercedes car. One from the ashram with a Mercedes car. It was Uda. And he didn't speak much. I went into the back seat, like in a taxi, and I had to speak something. I said, "What are you doing here?" He didn't look like a taxi driver. And I said, "I'm an engineer." That's all. He dropped me at Frederick's place, and so it was a totally different atmosphere. Oh, it was a totally different atmosphere, and it was a bit high life for me.
This is our Frederick, who is still here, right? And you said he dropped you at Frederick.
Shaman Frederick.
Yeah, Shaman Frederick.
Yeah. They had a house in Pondi, so I stayed with them. First of all, I realized Pondi drinks coffee. Hyderabad drinks Irani tea. And coffee is my old substance. That was already a big thing. And when it came to the inauguration, so we were called one day by the ashram. There were about maybe 10 buses to take the delegates around the ashram departments to show what's about. And every time I saw Mother Sri Aurobindo, so it was a sort of warming up. And then when the day of inauguration came, 1 hour before, all the people, maybe 200, 120 couples, boys and girls.
Yeah, representing each country, yes.
We had to line up in the square roads in Pondicherry alphabetically. Yeah, it came via alphabet. And so Germany comes in a relation next to France. So we were in direct contact. At least we had to wait half an hour or more with the French people. So we had lots to discuss. We were the same age. And then the idea hit me. Now, 500 years, the French and the German were enemies. Now let's make a stop. And I saw under the Foyer du Soldat, I think it was in Bougainvillea. And I plucked some flowers, gave them, and I kept one for us. And then I said, "You put your flowers in our bowl, and I put these flowers in your bowl." And since that time we had peace. 500 years.
He's got the bowl. This is the original bowl that had this. It's probably the only one in the world, maybe, I don't know, anymore. Because he's an archaeologist, I left that part out. He's also a Zen archer. He has a calligrapher, many talents. So I don't know how much we can get through of all the Poppo stories, but this is the bowl used because as an archaeologist, he would preserve this.
When coming to Auroville finally in 1970, I found a bowl without cover in Promise. And this bowl I kept also, and when Krishna Tiwari from Archive, I told him about the bowl. Yeah, can you give it us for an exhibition in Delhi? I said, yes, but pack it properly. It went to Delhi, came broken back. So I think this is the only one left. So you asked me about the feeling, etc. It was high life for my usually return in Hyderabad. And what I felt immediately, the world was meeting. I had a sensation throughout all the days to meet the world, like you may feel in Olympic Games. Yeah, I never felt that. So it keeps up the spirit very high. And you talk also differently when you're in contact with these people. They must have felt a similar spirit. Yeah. And this went the whole day long. Now, so we were put alphabetically along the point, then we were driven by bus to the station where the urn is now. Everything was flat. They put the white marble lotus there, but nothing around with a little ramp. Move around. Yeah, and we had to wait and wait and wait. And it's getting hot. So we had to wait there under shade, and it was estimated 2,000. Now, after 50, 100 years, they may say 5,000, 10,000. You can't put 10,000 into a picture. And and we had to wait, and the atmosphere was there. And about 11, 12 o'clock, when the sun is very hot, you had to walk very carefully, slowly. Some nations took their time. Some nations couldn't bring their delegates from their countries, so what they did was taking Nalin, who is the only one left over from the inauguration, and you were in the ashram, no? Yeah, to replace the different countries. He replaced Congo, yeah, but I was replacing genuine country. Okay, then. I have to remember. And then Mother's voice was recorded before. Mother never came to Auroville. Only we heard first time her voice. For me, this was all new. And that she initiated the whole thing was a remarkable thing. Usually the people should come participate in the inauguration like that. But nothing. But we didn't question anything. The atmosphere was great, and there was an exhibition under the banyan tree for general information. Then, and then we were thirsty, you know. I mean, after 3-4 hours on the side, under a shade, and the table where the drinks were there, all gone. So we were with the Frenchies together. We went to Pondi. I can't remember, most probably by bus. And we went to a quality hotel near the park, and we had beer, our usual drink, no? And it worked also. You get a little bit in the heat, a little bit more fluent, yeah. And this was, Another thing was when I dropped the soil. By the way, the girl with me was a nurse in the Nilgiris. We were from the German volunteer service on a term of 2 years, and she was called from the Nilgiris to be a part in a boy and girl. And she held the poster and I had the bowl. And when I put down the German soil and I looked into the urn, I could look. No, I'm not that small, and I looked in. Yeah, what else to say? And when we went home, and then we had another 2 days where all the delegates and participants met in the society house in Pondi. Yeah, and then I remember only small incidents. I remember the Swedish people, the American people, the American girl with a mini skirt, you know, you could hardly see in Hyderabad. And the Russians, no, not Russians, Soviet Union, they sent a boy and girl of an age of 10, 11, yeah, and they prevented contact with the general people. They were hurried in, put the soil in, and hurried back. Yeah, it was, yeah.
But now we have to make the transition how you got back to Auroville and started living here.
I was fascinated from the idea, even with admiration of what we call today, or even in those days, the galaxy. I said, tremendous. I said, they need architects. And then when you come here, then I wrote directly to Mother. I said, I would like to work here. There are many people you can talk to. I tried to talk to Roger, but his English was very limited. But he had a companion, Braslewski, which probably he worked together with the present galaxy. He was talkative. He talked 2 hours to me in the society house when we had lunch there with all the delegates. I didn't know how they fed all these people there. But we were talking about, he had a tremendous knowledge of building construction. Yeah, okay. Then I said, what I have to do when I want to join here? There was no clear answer. You write to Mother. Okay. Back in Hyderabad, I wrote a letter to Mother, and she wanted to have a photograph, passport size or any size. Yeah, and to my surprise, she answered, not personally, through Navajata, the secretary till then. You are welcome. What did she write? You can ever join us when it's convenient to you. And I felt so relieved. I could drop my things back in Germany, etc., could finish things there. Yeah, and then the idea grew and grew and grew. I told everybody about it, but they had no counter or didn't question any further. And then it hit me. Usually we come from a capitalistic society. You get your salary, you work, you get your salary. No, we'll give you only 100 rupees per month, not today, 100 rupees. And this includes your clothing, your food, and we give you shelter. So this was circulating in my mind. And when I asked Navjata about it, but I want to go to Germany once a year at least to see my family. No, that we can pay. So this was circulating at least for a year or two. But then there's strings working. The idea vanished. The higher spirits came down, back to the ground. But then other spirits, and to tell this story would be too long. Suddenly we wanted to go back to, with the same organization to Nepal, but they had no requirements for architects or no requests, but they had requests for Ghana in Africa and for Indonesia. But then in the same organization, one director phoned to the other, they were all interconnected without iPhone, internet and all that, whether we would like to go to Auroville. Oh, Auroville. I had already come down. I looked for other things. Yeah, it took us 2 days. I said, we go to Auroville. How it came to it, too long to explain. You only realize in retrospect that something is working beyond your level of consciousness. And that when at that age of 25 you don't know. And you realize definitely on the when later on, especially when you have worked here and you have liked to appreciate the place. Yeah, then the organization took us. We had to go undergain training, etc. Since I had to learn for 3 months French, and then since English I knew more or less. Yeah, and then we came to Auroville.
So you were under a new organization then that was sponsoring you in Auroville. Do I understand that right?
Yes.
Okay.
But for them it was difficult. It was an organization for development aid, for developing a poorer section of the society or village development work, for which we were assigned to. And this was the main thing. But they had always doubts, the spiritual aspect behind, because spirituality is questionable, no? Because you cannot prove it. And but I made myself busy in the villages, and in the end, after 10 years building model houses of different construction, everybody knows probably Kulapalayam. There were only mud houses, please, only mud houses, except the temple, and one house next to the temple, maybe the village headman.
Well, that's how you became Poppo Swami.
No, that came different.
Oh, that came different.
Yeah.
Tell us that also.
Yeah. And so there was a lot of work to do, especially from the place where I come from, to help the poor, which is a totally religious Christian motive. And this is the driving force, and you get your living allowance here and enough. It was 8 times more what the Aurovillians got. There were only about 80, maybe 100 Aurovillians already there in 1970 when we came. Yeah, we were ample. We didn't have to ask for money. We had enough. And and I was one of the first who had a motorcycle. I said, how do you go 5 kilometers every day to the village? We were connected. And then the organization, they gave me a motorcycle in Radstoot. Yeah, Radstoot is so fast that you can walk next to it. Yeah, or the, and with a combined Polish carburetor, the body Indian, piston Yugoslavia probably, I don't know, communist country. Yeah, but it worked for 10 years, and I could do the work at the same time, do Auroville works. And they were quite happy that I was doing it. Nobody were questioning anymore. And this was a time of entry into Auroville. The easiest way was, as you compare it today with people who want to join Auroville, the bureaucracy already involved. It was only mother's letter, you come whenever it's convenient to you. Now, little bureaucracy is needed, otherwise you get... There should be some sort of background, at least, but it's so complicated, you have to do training, you have to have a mentor and all that. The mentor I got also, but it came out of the blue, and automatically, without asking, yeah, who introduced me to the old, complicated Indian system of gods, religion, Hinduism, spirituality, and he was a Parsi. Yeah, our neighbor in Promise, he was a former labor union.
Labor union.
Labor union, no? Yeah. So he was fluent in English, very good for me. And then he recommended, then he asked one day what you're reading. I said, Sat Prema Adventure of Consciousness. He said, I don't say exactly what I said, but I can describe it. He said, why you read this? Go directly to the fountain.
Go directly to the fountain.
Yeah, that means reading Aurobindo. And Aurobindo, you have to make an effort. Maybe most of the people know. For mother, everything is easy, yeah, to understand once you start living in Auroville. And I tell you once, the problems we have now, they were started already there, only in small scale. Only in small scale. And then you have to verify, you have to meet different people in the work, into the whole environment of the village, which I worked, their mentality, yeah, to which I quickly adjusted to it. And at the same time, I worked. Then I joined. So where do you join? I didn't have an office, so I joined Piero and Gloria. Piero, who worked on the Matrimondia, Gloria. So they gave me a place in their office. I had my table, and I had my projects, and there was no contractor, no structural designer, and then we had to do all ourselves. Yeah. I didn't have to go to Chennai or ENV to see a structural engineer. We did all done by ourselves. The first building was the handmade paper factory in Aspiration. Quite big. The person there was the manager starting building the handmade paper, Gupta. Yeah, and they influence you, and everything was quite. And Roger was the authority who authorized us. Okay, you do it, you build it. Yeah, we had to submit all the projects to him, and he wanted to have a maquette, a model. And I'm not used to make maquette. I can read drawing very well, and a maquette was only possible probably for the Frenchies to do a design like that. Yeah. So I learned to we made in school also, but for us it was not important. So I was getting used to it to make models. So we presented the model, and then he said, "Très joli," something like that. And then we went ahead. But construction-wise, I realized it was very different from my way of education and upbringing. And so that was the beginning of work here. And I realized I didn't interfere into the city area. We didn't call it galaxy in those days. The term came a little bit later. I was working outside, Kulapalayam, mainly in the villages near Auroville, Coot Road, building model houses there in Kulapalayam. And finally we built 400-500 houses in villages around Auroville. It's Rayapurup, how is it? How that place now? Yeah. And many other projects. So, anything more to tell right now?
No, keep going. We're only we only got
Can be boring,
37 more years to cover. She wants to know the first building you did. I think he mentioned the handmade paper, right? In Aspiration.
No. The first was a community kitchen in Kulapalayam. There was a community kitchen in Aspiration, where all the people in Aspiration ate. And for the workers, Auroville workers, local workers, they prepared food. And it was carried by car to different places. And they wanted to have an open kitchen, and for Auroville connected visitors who can eat there, usually South Indian food. So the dining hall, I think it was the first design, or Helga's kindergarten first. Yeah, and then you get an experience how the system worked here. Today maybe better. You had to run. I won't tell now. Maybe you know. Then the dining hall usually were done in casuarina poles. You had to order, then they bring it here. It was controlled in Pondicherry, and you place an order, 1 month, nothing coming, 2 months, doesn't coming. Yeah, and other people are coming, why you are not doing anything? Like that. And then you have to go to top people, etc. Yeah, then you learn the mentality, how it's working. And those people were working only in Pondicherry. So there you get a first taste of the working capacity here. Today is definitely different. And and the design, there's probably no photo now. If some of you remember the Olympic Games in 1972 in Munich, the famous tent, I said, why designing a normal saddle roof, what usually people do here, with bamboo and casuarina and cover it with cocoa leaves? I said, we can do a different shape. I didn't know about termites. There's so many different things. The climate, all what you learn. You could not ask anybody. You have to trouble yourself with your own discovery later on. Then, we made a similar design, like a tent-like, but in a different form and shape. It was to change the flow of architecture in those days in Auroville, and it was quite satisfying for me. Do you remember that? No. The kitchen, and they made a small theater, outside platform. Yeah. So this was the first thing and the first taste. And when the big cyclone came in 1972, my first trip was to the paper factory. The asbestos paneling was free there, but everything had been blown away. Nothing had been blown away from the paper factory, but the dining hall, to compare with, just flat, like a wet towel. Bah! Very simple. The termites ate up the poles in the ground. Yeah, then that's the way of learning. So what next?
Fraternity. Then you move. When did fraternity get going?
Fraternity was, since working in the villages, I had contact with organizations in Germany for financing, also other projects where other Aurovillians were involved, including Frederick. I don't remember, Meenakshi came a little later, and for financing. Yeah, I had my start project in fraternity, where weaving, mat weaving, cloth, normal weaving was happening, and I have to remember the items, mainly weaving. And they had a normal cocoa leaves shed, and they wanted to have something permanent with a limited money. So I designed a low-cost permanent building, 190 rupees a square meter, which was very cheap. Some of you remembered when it was built? Helmut? No? I brought a photo here, since you didn't bring it. And it was a star project for me, my first one, where nobody could interfere.
We can pass this around. See.
Where no client could interfere, and only I had to show it to Roger. I showed him the model, each member cut out, because model making was had to be done by force, more or less. Otherwise, wouldn't they be accepted? And then, he said, très joli. That means go ahead. And then at the same time, when I studied other constructions in Auroville, where they used 2-3 years for doing a structure, he built mainly in ferrocement. They used 2 years, 3 years. I said, why take so much time? And the whole fraternity, I wanted to show efficiency. We built the whole thing in 7 months. Yeah? Not houses, it's a workshop. It's a workshop, you see the photograph there. And not Fanu, Sally, yeah. I know 73. No, I didn't ask for the year. Who is that book? No, it wasn't. We applied in 1972. We finished we started in April 73 and finished in November 73. Yeah, but what happened inside, and when it was done after 7 months, where otherwise it would take 2 years or 3 years, the construction site in Aspiration, yeah, what they talked behind me, I don't know. That's okay. And from the administration, neutral, there was no response. But I had to run from Promes, 5 kilometers, 2 times a day, by famous Radstoot, to and fro, and check every afternoon and every morning. There were no kitchen, especially the aspiration kitchen. And people don't realize today who are coming new here, we are so much overfed with the feeding galleries, the Kulapalayam Road, etc. Yeah, especially in the time when there was nothing. So, and I appreciate it, and whatever is chewable, I'm happy. Fraternity, okay. So I said in the beginning that fraternity was my first star project under more or less my control. And the client, I was there, I was a client, and the architect and the contractor. There were no contractor. We had to take carpenters from a village who spoke little English, and that was enough. With little Tamil, little English, that was fully enough. And that's why you had to check twice a day that they wouldn't do. And some learned to read drawings. You know, that was very important. Yeah, that was a big thing, and for me at least. Yeah.
But,
Put one question more. I don't know what to tell you. Huh?
Oh, she's
That
asking
was,
about cement.
The cement the difficulty came in 71, 72. There was in 1973. Yeah, difficulty you had to apply, and that was one reason. Since I'm a learned carpenter, yeah, working with wood was fun for me. And there was asbestos, in German Eternit, available as a cheap building material. And to put something vertical in wood was still possible to buy in Pondicherry. And but our manager, Dieren from Aspiration, he kept the accounts, the official accounts, and he went to Mysore according to a wood list, buy in the forest, get the wood cut to size, and bring it here. And it was definitely cheaper than buying without profit to the dealer or the wood merchant in Pondi. But and I realized after fraternity was finished, I was also finished. So next time, different. And then I relaxed for the next one. Who came next one? I don't know.
But do you want to skip up to quiet? Because quiet is
a big jump.
It's a big jump. What about in between? What are things that you would highlight about what you learned from fraternity, and then you move to the next project? Like you built some houses and you built your...
No, in the mid-70s, we were busy with the villages, and there were small single houses. Yeah, and then the idea came. My stepfather was an architect, learned Mason. So I said the idea came to practice. You come here on a visit, and we practice domes or vaults. But he came here, but we never practiced. He came here for holiday. But the real thing was by practicing domes, I mean, everything came to me here. I don't know why. You don't have to travel far. It came right here. Then Hassan Fatih is a famous Egyptian architect. He wrote a book, Architecture for the Rural Poor. And I read it and I said, And then finally I saw, when I went off more to the Samadhi in the ashram, I saw one foreign couple, but not Indian, standing there looking critically at the Samadhi. But they were not Indians, I knew. Okay. One day these Indians came to my house. Not these Indians, these two people came to my house. Yeah, you have mentioned Hassan Fatih in your book, village houses in rammed earth, and we would like to talk to you. But he came, I wanted to talk to them. I got direct information how to do practically the self-constructing vault without support. Yeah, without support to make it feasible, reasonable, cheap. So they gave us, then the idea came, and next one quite came a little bit later. When was it? The first domes, that was done in 83, the first vaulting. We are trained in concrete, masonry. But to do something what people did 400, 500 years ago, there was no literature available, and iPhone, forget. And or get information from, or you have to search in Chennai or other libraries, even not possible. So when they came with that little information, we built the first flat arches out of bricks with support and removable. And they were done in certitude, and it worked. And finally, we wanted to do in lime mortar. But cement was not easy available. So lime mortar was available only here from the village, 20 kilometers away, which you have to first grind, etc. Now I'm getting technical. It's boring. So anyhow, I realized that the local lime has only 30% of calcium, while the lime in Europe has 90 to 95% calcium. It was a test being done, and then I said, then we built in the 80s, after these experiments in 83, Quiet was 10 years later, and domes. I remember Helmut built the first dome in Pichandikulam, correct? But the Nubian dome, they're a bit different, and that...
Here you can see the quiet domes.
At the same time, while working on the Matri Mandir Gardens, I was very much attracted to the Garden of Existence. And I started working on it. Roger left Auroville in 1975, came back 10 years later. So there was no real control or conception. Since I was not eager, but interested in only doing the Garden of Existence, and I worked for myself, theoretically, what it could be done. Yeah, I worked for it 20 years, only on paper. And I realized, and then they came asking me, would you like to do the garden? Existence was done first, I believe. I said, I don't know how to do it. Yeah, and then some people started working on it, and because landscaping came towards me in Auroville. I never did any landscaping in Germany. I liked landscaping because of nature. I like nature. I like me, like nature. And then being with the Boy Scouts, yeah, so you definitely love nature, under the nature, within the nature. I spent 1 week in a cave just to be in nature, below something else on top. And so landscaping automatically came, so the garden interested me. And I made a small little garden in Promise, 4 meter by 3 meter, just to play, to see the different plants. And then it turned out into something bigger. First, the garden in Promise, the first tea house there, I had to pay myself, yeah. And then Nobody would give money for that in those days. It was a time when the crisis starting already. And so the first tea house with a pond, the first experiment with a free, natural looking like pond, and there you learn. And so landscaping was most probably my nature, and that was one reason I shifted from promise to certitude, to be near Matrimandir, to do one day the garden of existence. And when one day people came and asked me, so I said, I don't know how to do it. Yeah, I have an idea, and especially there was a meeting with Roger and all these Matrimandir connected people, and people are interested in that. And they asked me, or Frederick, I didn't want to talk. I even asked Francois, some people know him. I said, please come in case I need support. He came, and then it was in 2007. They wanted to do the garden after more or less finishing the sphere. And then Frederick, he kicked me on the side. He said, now you talk. I said, I don't know what to do. When I see the petals, the sphere, the gold was not there yet, not fully done. And everything was laid out in lines and geometric forms. I said, I cannot touch any landscape of mine the way I look at nature to this. They didn't like it. I said, if I put an Ashoka tree next to the petals, see, because I'm an architect, I have a sense for architecture, I hope so, and put an Ashoka tree next to the petals, will it disturb the sphere? Oh, I can say that, no? So this was supreme design, this had to be maintained, and especially the area given by the garden design of Roger's team. I say, you cannot squeeze everything into a fixed thing. Nature is not like that, like a flower pot. Nature has a totally different system to operate. But this was totally ornamental, and I said, that's not my cup of tea. And then they put this huge long stone there with electric wiring under to have light from the sides, and then these white pebbles. It looked like an I don't know what. At least to my architectural. Can I speak freely?
Of course. We're
Of
all
course,
family
okay.
here. We're all family here.
So, and now they've changed it already. Now maybe a bit better with crystals.
Well, he also worked in Bharat Nivas for 10 years. So right in this campus, do you want to say anything about Bharat Nivas and what you did here?
When I joined Bharat Nivas, there were the people here living there. Asta was there. She kept the information and started slowly the Center of Indian Culture with little activities, etc. And one time I came here at Pongal, and they made a sort of Sanganam there, and they had food there in these half-finished buildings. I said, this is India representing Auroville. I said, let me try to take it over. Nobody did anything, and nothing happening, no money. And then I asked Prem Malik, he's not there anymore, can I do something here if funds are coming, to improve here this round building here, today Kalakchandra, to make it functionable. And then suddenly, after 1 or 2 months, money came from the Indian government for the International Youth here in 1985. Okay, I think 1 lakh. It was not like 1 lakh today. So we made this building functionable, toilets in the upper part, what is today, I don't know, where the library is. So today, evolution. Evolution. No? Toilets, and then arrangements in the auditorium for 1,000 people to sit, maybe or 500, I don't know. So this was a work, and then we continued every year, little bit here, little bit there. At the same time, while working on the Matre Mandir, something developed, and I came to know in architecture we learned about the golden proportion. Agree? You learned it, no? Okay, but not using practically, like our famous Corbusier. And then I read a book about the discoveries behind the Iron Curtain. Iron Curtain was a name for capitalism and communism. And this was so fascinating, and where the golden proportion was given, they gave you already a size to make a small little golden proportion, and I made a new model making by the time. I made a small little model in the size of the Great Pyramid. And when the pyramid was there, I felt so elevated, amazed by the beauty of that form. And that development took a couple of years and wasn't totally addition to the way of the design which we have learned. We learned it in school, but only a part, but unpracticed of it. Then you're getting more interested. At the same time, Kwai, that was in 85, I had a contact to a far-related relative. He was a building biologist, he was an architect, but more engineer than architect. And he told me about all this, what happens with electricity, electromagnetic fields, electrical fields. And I said, no, we are responsible. We are giving buildings to the people, yeah, and don't care for it. We never heard in school about it. They tell you only how you lay the wires, where you make a switch, yeah, or give it to an electrical contractor or consultant. All this added to it, and Quiet came at exactly at the same time, where I used the golden proportion, and especially the hall, the Harmony Hall, correct? I forgot that name. And the biological aspect, how to lay the electrical wires, yeah, where the people sleep and rest, no wiring, and other things.
And the mixture of the lime, you use limestone, no granite in a lot of the work, so that the radiation from the granite would not affect.
Yeah, this was also, Oh yeah, we made the concrete. We learned that granite, what is used today to making concrete, is slightly radioactive. And if you and all Indian temples are Paka granite. So if you sleep every day on it, it may have an effect. Yeah, but it's difficult to prove. It's one of the things. Granite. It's a volcanic rock, but lime rock is sedimentary. It's a lime where the sea was standing out for millennia and developing or died seashells sinking down in all these years. So it develops a different sediment, and it contains calcium quite a lot. And the people here in the area, they make lime out of lime rock, which is available about 5 kilometers away from here. So we use lime rock as a concrete. First examples in Kuwait. Then you have to break it to the correct size. They bring it in big pieces. It gives work to the local people, and that was another thing. Anything else right now comes to my mind? A totally new way of making building, which is good for people living in it.
Yeah, not only for the guests, but all those therapy rooms.
The therapy room came simple as a circle, And in the middle of a circle, there are the beds for therapies. I think there's no picture. I think it's in the book. Yeah. So it was done there, and what I remember, and then natural landscaping. And then you make experience. I won't mention name. The landscape, totally natural, less maintenance, yeah, which I learned all in the first park or garden with a tea house in Promise, where I liked ferns. I liked ferns so much. They are from my country, ferns, where they grow up, etc. But the problem is, you have to water them every day. You should stay with a hose pipe. In Europe, they stay by themselves, unless it's a drought. I said, no, that's the only way of... or you have a gardener there, cutting the grass by scissor, yeah, and watering the garden. So the normal natural landscaping developed the way I still do it today, naturally, with things I find, unless you order it, like in Kuwait, it's a big thing. And then somebody else comes. My project was over in 80, I don't remember now, 90. In 94 or 5, people going, Auroville people going and coming, newcomers coming in. Oh, he's doing landscape. He reverses everything. Yeah, everything done. Even Afsani's father, he wanted to donate a big crystal, which Yoshi in Celebration. He had a contact because he worked with stones. He said he wanted to have 2 legs, not Joshi, but the people there, and that would be an ideal thing. But Afsani's father said,
That's the Afsani guest house. We have one picture there.
no, this is okay, but it was mainly the inside courtyard, you know. Anyhow, it changed. What? Oh, Hugo Küchelhaus. Yeah. Hugo Küchelhaus is a man who, he was an architect, he was a physician, a designer. First time I'm talking officially about him, I've never done it. I talked only personally. So he worked mainly on the organism, since he was a physician. From his side, that modern architecture is neglecting the true sense of building, which happened 500,000 years ago, when natural buildings materials were used. Today we are using factory-made things, artificial things, plastic, yeah, totally different than, and lime mortar. There was no cement. Cement is 150 years old, and that's why you can face the overpopulation of the planet. So he was thinking differently, totally what can be done. So he tried to bring consciousness into our sensational system to become aware of what is happening in a human body when you're confronting this. And he wrote a book 50 years ago, Inhuman Architecture. And since it's architecture, inhuman, it's only in German. And I read it and I said, not bad. And I realized I feel like him and I'm practicing more or less. Only he made me more aware to his book. And this book, I read it in the 70s. I said, this should be translated to everybody concerned with building, architecture, etc. And then my cousin, he was a professor in English in Leipzig University. I said, you are the right man. And he was more or less a scribe as well of Küchelhaus himself. I said, you are the right person to do it exactly in English. When we excavated here near Matrimony Nursery, he was sitting under the banyan tree, under the neem tree, translating the book Inhuman Architecture in English. And finally, in 2007, it got printed in Pondicherry with few thousand copies, and it was a beginning. But the response is not what I expected. People go, plastic. People go iPhone. People go, I know, everybody knows. Not in the way. So he developed instruments to let people feel or become conscious of his instruments. It means there's a turning wheel with a spiral. You turn it, and the spiral comes to you, and you feel drawn into the spiral. It's a bodily sensation, for example. Another sensation is a circle with tiny little circles. My English is very bad to explain this. Tiny circles inside, and you turn the table, and the circles coming towards you. All these sort of sensations you feel. Then there are about 20, 30 different instruments, and this fascinated me just by operating them. And two I did once in Bharat Nivas, but you need more of them, and you need an introduction to it, what it means. And he spoke only German. He spoke only in no interpretation in other countries. He spoke only in Switzerland and Austria. Yeah, and that's mainly public. So that person, what he wrote, I said, the way I look at it, I'm doing it more or less similarly. To make, now the trend is today, I don't talk to you, David, personally now. You close your ear. Okay? Today, to design a building has an outline. And the outline usually is visible. But in minimizing the architecture, where you don't see the door handle anymore, but there is one. Yeah? When there's an outline of the building, there shouldn't be one. It should be minimized to the maximum. Yeah? And this is just in opposition to what Küchelhaus tells. Our bodily systems, our organs need to touch, to smell, to feel, to be alive. Yeah, when you go into modern buildings, yeah, I think you know.
Yeah,
I don't have to explain you.
We know. But we're going to have to kind of wind up by going back a few thousand years, because the last thing you did is the megalithic park. I sometimes call it Jurassic Park. That's up on the road here.
It's not. It will be Jurassic Park, but the bones still have to be excavated.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, near Matri Mandir.
Okay.
Below Matri Mandir. As you wish.
But tell us about the park, because we need a little bit of, because of course Poppo has this incredible love for this archaeology and the past and the history and the cities that are under us. And Auroville is up here, but there are cities under us, and he has gone down and checked some of them out, and he has brought up some circles, some stone circles that you can visit any day, and you drive by them every day up on the corner of the road. So just say a little bit about that experience, and what is your, that is something you're really contributing. You're connecting the present and the past and all of these things.
See, I started archaeology natürlich in proportion to my age, at the age of 4. See, with the age of 4, it was a time when the Second World War was over, and the troops, the American troops and the English troops, passed through all the village for whatever they did, and they sometimes camped in the village, and they were smoking, these soldiers. They had nothing much to do anymore. Americans, yeah, they came, but mainly the British. And they were smoking. I put the butts there, and I picked them up, gave the butts to my grandfather. He put the butts in his pipe to smoke the pure nicotine. happily. And he turned about more than 80. So that was the first sin of getting nothing waste, to
Zero waste, yes.
low waste. Yeah. This was a part, or when there were no recycling officially, but the village, they had one huge sand quarry which was not operationable, with an old, totally rusted crane to lift, I don't know when, where people, everything dropped. And this was a time when fashion changed in the village. And for me, it was in heaven to go there and look, to take out things. I can't remember. I remember only one electrical plate where you put these porcelain switches. Yeah, I put it in our 200-year-old timber-framed house in one room, just to have it where I didn't have a room. Anyhow, so I kept it there, and after some time I couldn't find it. My mother threw it out again. So that was the beginning of archaeology, of looking at things in proportion to my age. And this happened already in Germany, and I wanted to stop architecture and started archaeology. But then I was told I have to learn Greek and Latin. I said, it was too much for me. Yeah, and I have nothing against the languages, but yeah. So I continued, but the instinct was there. So when I came to Auroville, I discovered, for myself, I didn't tell anybody, one pot under the second banyan, sticking out of the... I said, but that pot... People removed soil there, and one pot was half cut, sticking out. Sticking out. So it went on, and it was only activated when Michael Tate came. We are planting trees in Centerfield towards Bharat Nivas. We hit granite. And then I said, granite, in those days, it's not from here, it's artificial. It's carried on from a granite area. And that was the first open discovery, which I learned later. A burial with a capstone and urns below. And then that was in 81, and there were no worker. I had no money also, and I was working for 1 year in Matrimandir for the notes, for the carpentry, done the first notes, which was later on done in ferrocement with a root. And then I took 2 workers, one Michele and Rolf. They helped me excavating that granite slab, and quite remarkable. I said, my God, how am I going to running an office, etc., and then working there, how we can do it. And you could see from Matrimony to Bharat Nivas, well, no problem. The forestation wasn't there, and but there was something has to be done. I took Larry and some Aurovillians who we lifted up the stone slab, and no, not like this. I made a hole next to this all myself in the heat. I had a black umbrella, an Indian umbrella, cotton umbrella put on a bamboo, and dug down ungefähr 1-2 meter, and I didn't know what was under it, And then I touched the clay body, but a funny shape, and I didn't know. Then I went further, and then I saw a sarcophagus, a terracotta body with 6 legs and a cover. I didn't know all about that. And I never studied archaeology, just by self-doing and the opportunity. And then we realized we cannot go totally under the slab, then the slab will sink down. And then we removed the slab, and then we discovered the top, totally against the principle of excavating, and that we did properly later on. First to know what we are working with. Then we had cleared the sarcophagus. Uh-huh. Yeah, and then the story goes, and then it developed, and there's another story. And then you need funds. Yeah, and I told people about, we had the first pots. And then Shankar, big Shankar. Yeah, we need a museum. They talked about museum as one of a few pots. And then we realized, I worked in it, and I saw that the pottery is very weak, the terracotta. So you take one pottery shard out, with the humidity it falls apart in 10, 15 parts. And then Angad and Patrick. So they contacted the archaeological survey, and then they came after three weeks, took it out in 1 week, and they like to come to Auroville with Pondi, because drinks, no? No, you find out later. And they excavated it and took everything back to Chennai. And there were 2 pots on top of the sarcophagus, which I took carefully out and brought to my place to have it secure. And it was broken but complete. And I gave it to them to have a complete thing belonging to the burial. When I saw it, how they took the pot from my hand and put it on a jeep seat. And you know how a jeep runs. Not packing carefully with paper, etc. No. And then I realized slowly we worked a little bit different. And this was more or less a beginning of till now 26 excavation, finally funding.
Well, they can see the explanations. Some of it is there. The banners that he had made are displayed under that little shed, and it explains that particular area and these various cairns and the stones. So that work is all there, complete. And
then slowly the first excavations were done in center field behind trees. There's a law here in India that you cannot dig below 30 centimeter when there is archaeological evidence. We knew that. And I said, before they are coming, and the work they do, we can do also, and we can keep it properly. And then funding was arranged with the time when Balabhaskar was here. The first 60,000 rupees to pay the coolies. The money goes back to the people. Only for material we had to use, but in comparison, little money. I was working voluntarily, free, and only the coolies had to be paid. It was the main expenditure. Yeah, there were about, later on it was increased, and then with the working committee, then they played the role, we have to do it legally, and with the ASI, etc. And then that was the last 3 excavation in the triangle in your park. No. We had an Indian archaeologist came visiting us. He was a history teacher in Tagore College in Pondi, who helped us. And he is an archaeologist trained here in India, and he came very often. We took his name. He came once in a while to see, and we took his name and we established a group. There was Balabhaskar, Meenakshi, Raman, a group. We called it Chembulam. Yeah, and then the first money came, and then they give you a permission, and the permission lasts for 1 year. And when you apply for the next year, you have to apply in advance. But then the money didn't were sanctioned in the foundation or in the governing board, and then you had the permit. All this didn't work. And till then, Stichting Desire came in, a Dutch organization for at least 3-4 times, or 5. And they told us in the end that we cannot pay you money lifelong. And in the meanwhile, we made researchers We have the Indian law that you need permission from the archaeological survey, but at the same time, and we made a study, this was paid by Auroville, I sent my assistant with a TVS, go around 20 kilometers around Auroville and see what is there on megalithic archaeological substance. And it's remarkable. Remarkable. And nobody cares. There are cairn circles disrupted by bulldozers put on the side making agricultural fields. There's a granite quarry destroying granite circles, which are there 2,000 years. They disrupt them, smash them, and sell it to people in Auroville, Pondy, I don't know, make concrete. So this, for me, very difficult to take. And this was an argument that I can work independently and learn the techniques in the meanwhile. And we got the best compliment in the end when I invited from my hometown, the town archaeologist. Every German old town has a town archaeologist. As soon as a building in the old city is done, he comes to inspect whether there is worthwhile to do an excavation and document. So he came mainly for the sun. Yeah, and his holiday. Yeah, and he had the international atmosphere here. He knew the Ganesh bakery. Yeah, and all this. And so he came, I think, 3 times. And we were funded by Stichting Desire, I think. Yeah. But this couldn't be done anymore until, I think it was the governing board who said the next one, it was in the park. You have to engage GSI, and this we did then officially till 2017. Yeah, and we have a tremendous amount of finds, mainly terracotta, and which are kept down in the unfinished Tamil heritage basement, safe before it was scattered in Bharat Nivas at 5 underground places in Bharat Nivas. There's an underground city in Bharat Nivas. Most people don't know. Yeah, which gets flooded when it rains, and yeah. Even a pot is worshipped. Everything is done here. I don't want to tell the story, the implication which later on came with financing and with the foundation and the governing board. They stopped the funding, etc., etc. But what I meant here already, we get the permission to excavate, but no money. There's no use to having fund then. So it was a good end. Only my assistant trained for 20 years to find a job for him. And he replaced me in many cases that I can go away from the work and he would continue. So luckily, Jos in Pichandikolan took him for his interests. Yeah, sometimes he reports. And the idea was, in 10 years ago, I designed the museum. We have boxes like this where the idols stand on, little smaller. We have about 400 boxes full of terracotta and pottery. They're all happily stored in Tamil heritage, safely, of which we have the key.
Yes.
I tell you, I had it from the early childhood, from the 4. It's a very good question, for which I have an answer now. If you had asked me 2 years ago, I wouldn't have. The answer came after 26 excavations in this climate. You have to do a lot of running and sweating. Yeah, looking after the people, getting things done, looking after the funding, etc., and the approval. People are all interested, no doubt, but to get it done. Yeah, and I remember Even I had antiques in Germany for my grand aunt, supposed to be 100 or 200 years old. They lived in a 300 years old timber-framed house, to which I went when her husband, my uncle, wasn't there, because I didn't trust him. I trusted only my aunt. To go the narrow staircase up, and there you saw, because they were rich, 100 years ago, they made schnapps. Schnapps means alcohol, but similarly, not brandy, schnapps, like gin, like gin. So they had money by selling these alcohol, and there I saw a Rococo mirror in golden frame, because fashion has changed. Oh, I took it, I asked my aunt, I'll take it. I saw old written things, and what was old attracted me. I don't know. Born into? It's a good question, but I got a good answer to it, which I brought here to explain. Good you put the question. That was a beautiful satisfaction that I can look with this feeling totally different and more objectively. I will read it to you. From their ancestors, when schooling was done in the 19th century, normal schooling for public. Yeah, for public. They were analphabets 200 years ago, normal people. Only the aristocrats, they got schooling from private tutors. Yeah. So they were the first essay written book in ink and nib, essays. What they wrote. Then they wrote that girls cannot swim, it's not meant for them, and all these sort of things. Yeah. And this I collected. By the way, I returned everything. And the only answer is, after so much running and 26 excavation going from 1975 till 2017, I think. Yeah. And since we are not looking here for credits, you do it for your own sake, to work out something within you. And this really had happened. And I got a big thanks from Aurobindo. In writing, which I read 10 years ago, but read, okay, next. But when I read it, just maybe 2 years ago, when I read it, I read it already 10 years ago and didn't notice. And I want to read it to you. Good you put the question. This is called Foreseen. I read it in 1988 in a magazine done by Auroville, France. They gave a magazine, Auroville. And he quoted in some connection probably with Aricamedu. So he quoted it as the beginning of the article. So this is Aurobindo. The experiment of human life on an earth is not now for the first time enacted. It has been conducted 1,000,000 times before, and the long Dharma will again 1,000,000 times be repeated. In all we do and don't do, our dreams, our discoveries, our swift or difficult attainments, we profit subconsciously by the experience of innumerable precursors, and our labor will be fecund in planets unknown to us and in worlds yet uncreated. And that was enough for me. Oh, that's it. So to end the story about the archaeology, when it came to an end in 2017 or 18, we made from the funds a big trip with all the workers to Thanjavur, and I bring all the girls and boys, their kids, in the van just to make an outing, a tour. And this was the end of the... But I wanted to give what I have learned in all these 30, 40 years to give it back, and that's why the idea, the museum, I realize it's not possible. Luckily, it's not possible. And then people ask me, when you build the museum, you haven't done it, etc., etc. And then I realized to build a museum and you keep it running, can other people do. And I remember Sauro, who was one of in the committees, that museum can be built anywhere. I said, no. I said, the site museum is done on the spot. And we had found what I call the King's Burial and the Queen's Burial, which had special bronze items in the excavation pit. And there we found a chalice in bronze, and it was Iron Age. All their tools were in iron, 2,500 years ago. And I couldn't believe it. There on the bottom in the King's one, we found one bronze piece with 11 sticks coming out, on each stick a tiny little ball. I said, what is this? For 20, 30 years, I worked only worldly things, what people use in life. I wanted to see something where they believed in, something religion, something fetishism, something local. And then we found it. And this was a revelation for me. We found out, but it was the bronze items were very thin, like Indian appalam, papad. So, but the item with the 11, what I call it, rays, looked like a sun, and on the tip of the ray, there was a tiny little ball, all patina corroded, and this was a enigma to me, and this started a new work in my own field to tackle the mainstream of history, the mainstream of present-day politics, and the mainstream of local, or not local, also local history and general world history, then Darwin's theory, etc. It's all new. And I'm busy with that. And the excavation work, I wanted to do a last one instead of a museum. I know how it is to run a museum, especially in this environment here, with shifting presences and very often illiterate people. Then to build a kiosk, and that was a place. To do a kiosk where it explains in general what it means. So somebody asked, what did you find? Who was it? So the main finds are iron implements, swords, double-edged swords, daggers, small swords, but not mamti yet. Because we have mamtis in Auroville enough. So some tool, I don't know how to define it. And then iron implements, then fine things, beads. I said instead of cornelian beads, I wanted to say coriander beads. Carnelian beads, gold beads, lapis lazuli, less. Lapis lazuli imported, the trade till Afghanistan. All this you come to know in time. And these were the main, and then the burials, especially the last excavations, that showed chalices, chalice. Chalice, with a cover and animals on top. No, bronze, So they use bronze for religious purposes. Iron for, cutties, especially sickle, no? Yes. Sickle. agriculture, especially sorts. The long one was like that, totally rusted, 2,000 years in the soil. Soil is very acidic, so it's not easy to keep it. So instead of a museum, I built this with American, because from the foundation we didn't get any money. Yeah, for them it's not futuristic enough. Yeah, and which one? It was meant for the public. No, it's only in the basement. You need storage. Look, in Bharat Nivas, we had masters there. And the places where all the finds were in 5 different places, 5 different keys. And all the masters are different. And now I have only 1 key. And all is there. So hopefully safe. Now, I don't know when it will be changed. I don't know. I think it's okay. So instead of a museum, the idea came here, financed by one of the earliest leftovers from the inauguration. Luckily, he didn't hear. And by AV America, USA. And it's the first park in Auroville, which is there for everybody. Everybody, goats, cows, villagers, tourists, newcomers, oldcomers, retired, unretired. Retired people walk there, sit there, their benches. No, it's multi-purpose, and happily the cows are there. They keep the, and there you have to learn what to plant. This was my big lesson. The cows, they like to eat, no? I mean,
Definitely.
yeah.
Shilpa would like to give you just a little token of your visit
Token?
here. Yeah, a little token.
No more questions?